Good evening, everyone. I'm going to tell you a story about my middle school class trip to Cape Henlopen, which I believe is in Delaware. Anyway, just to start off the preface of the story, I have cerebral palsy from birth. And so when I went on a class trip of this size that's overnight, obviously I needed some assistance, and we decided to pick my father as a counselor / chaperone. Give you a little background on how my dad would be a counselor / chaperone. My senior year in high school, we had an after prom party, and they went through the rules with the chaperones, and one of them was to if you see kids, sneaking in alcohol or drinking, you can kick them out. And my dad is the type of person that decided to take that advice and go around, and he asked one of the captains of the cheerleading team, who has a hip flask, so he could partake in some booze. And later on, she told that story in class to my science teacher. And when I asked my dad about it, he said, I was just trying to smoke out the booze. So anyway, getting back to Cape Henlopen, 7th grade for boys is probably the most awkward teenage age for maturity. So anyway, there's a team bus, or like a school bus, where they're going to haul these kids down to Cape Henlopen that were in my grade. And obviously I have a lot of equipment being disabled. I have a manual wheelchair, crutches, etc. And so we decided, and this is way before Garmin and GPS, that we were going to follow the bus in our family minivan. So we're cruising down Delaware, and the bus is making all kinds of crazy turns, blowing stop signs and red lights, total disregard for the fact that we're behind them trying to follow. So my dad, in his frustration, casually flips the middle finger as he's holding onto the steering wheel. Well, immediately the car in front of us, which was either a minivan or SUV, hits on the brakes and stops. And all of a sudden a woman who looks like a young mother gets out of the car, and I'm in the passenger seat. I happen to notice that there's a child in the seat behind her, gets out of the car, walks up to my dad's driver's side window. He rolls down the window and she goes, "That wasn't very nice, sir." And, basically my dad was like, "It wasn't at you." Meanwhile, while she's like, "Get back in your car, woman. It wasn't at you." So meanwhile, while she's holding us up, the bus has totally lost us. Long story short, we made our way to Cape Henlopen. Now when you get to Cape Henlopen, the structures you sleep in are kind of concrete with a sand floor, and everything's like that. The bathroom, the kitchen, the commons, all that. So we get our cabin assignments, and imagine the movie The Goonies. The Goonies are all together, random people. Well, my cabin assignment was like The Goonies, but we all weren't friends. Okay? So anyway, the main goal of Cape Henlopen is each cabin generates points off these educational tasks that we do throughout the week. Well, I'm not going to go through them all, but one of those tasks was, and they bring the teachers from all grades, all forms of study. So one of those tasks was our science teacher picked up our cabin and was going to lead us through I guess you would call it the Jersey, Delaware marshlands before you get to the actual beach, the woodland areas. And then down in Cape Henlopen, if you've ever been there, they have these World War II towers to look out for submarines or attacks that could come from Germany, etc. So anyway, my dad's there's no way I'm going to push your manual wheelchair through the terrain, so we're just going to run ahead with this pretty girl that's a counselor so I can chat with her, and we'll just go to the observation tower and meet up with your cabin there. So I was cool. So anyway, the main goal of this trip is to earn points for your cabin. So I said, "Hey Dad, I just learned how to master stairs with my physical therapist. Why don't I climb to the top of the observation tower? It could get us some points, and we'll meet up by the cabin there." So if you've ever been in those observation towers, it's a circular staircase all the way up. So I get to the top, and it was pretty intense, It was I was hoping that Rapunzel would be there when I... Anyway, so we get to the top, and imagine the Ronald Reagan State Funeral, where people are walking by to observe the president's body. Well, I waited there all day for like my cabin to show up, and they never did. So meanwhile, we climb back down the stairs, which is a lot easier because you're going with gravity. And we find out that that science teacher that was assigned to our cabin, I had him later on or earlier in my career, and he was a nice guy, but he wasn't too swift. So somehow he got my group lost, and obviously they never made it to the observation tower. In between these, sessions where we gained points, we had daily tasks. One of them was we got assigned to the kitchen one day to prepare food for everybody. And we had this math teacher, her nickname was Sergeant Stamball. So anyway, when we got assigned to her, she was in the kitchen. I remember I peeled potatoes for her, and she was really impressed. Now, obviously, we have to bathe and everything because sand's everywhere. Well, I need some help in the shower considering I'm outside of my element. So my dad goes in the shower with me. Well, if you've ever been to Cape Henlopen, you don't have the luxury of like hot water heaters. So immediately when the shower comes on, it's ice cold water, and my dad starts screaming and moaning, and not like a death scream, but more of a like sensual scream. So, I never lived that one down. Everybody thought that like my dad had cornholed me in the shower. To make a long story short, we ended up bonding as a group despite our late night pillow fights, and we ended up winning for the boys' cabin because my dad, who's a natural born leader, united that Goonie typecast clan, and we became the champions for the 7th grade of Cape Henlopen that year.
Thank you, everybody.